Okay, so the first thing we have to do is to model the trash can. Usually you want to have some type of reference image that you can follow. In this case, I'm going to be using a few images here. I'm not going to be following the images specifically. I'm just going to use them as somewhat of a reference, but I'm not going to be exactly following one in particular. So I have a few here. I'm going to be, you can just Google for Trashcan images, or just to make it easier for you, I'm also going to let you download this from my website. But again, they don't really belong to me. I just found these from Google. So let's go ahead and start. First thing we have to do when you model something in Maya is make sure you come here on the drop down menu for your tool set. Make sure it's set to polygons and not animation. Okay, that's going to change all the menus up here so that they follow more for the more appropriate for modeling. Next, for a trash can like this, we want to use we want to start with a primitive that resembles the shape, which in this case is obviously a cylinder. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So let's go to create and make sure you go on the polygon primitives. Don't choose the NURBS, choose the polygons. I like to keep interactive creation disabled. Let's go ahead. A cylinder. Just click on that, and as you can see, Maya is going to drop our object right here, which is really tiny if we're far away. Just gonna scale that. Press R to scale that. Make sure you have it selected, of course. I'm also going to press 5 so I can see the. I'm also going to press 5 so I can see the shaded mode, and I'm going to press R so I can scale this guy up. Okay, it should be fine. And if your cylinder is different from mine as far as the divisions that it has, I want you to open the channel box, which is going to be right here on the right. If you don't have it, let me close it so that I don't have it. So if you don't have it, the easiest way is if you just press Ctrl A. It's going to open first. It's going to open the attribute editor. If you press Ctrl A again, it's going to show you the channel box. Okay, so you want to make sure that your history is enabled. Your history icon is right here. This little guy, make sure that's enabled. It's going to show our history right here on the right on the channel box. So click on the poly cylinder one. Sometimes I'm using Maya 2014. You're using another version, may be under the different name, or you may not even have to click on something. It's just going to show these options. So the thing that you have to look for here, the most important thing, so that yours matches mine, just make sure the subdivision axis is set to 20. So just set that to 20 right here. Okay, everything else just leave it as is. Okay, so that's it. So now, again, make sure you are under the scale tool. In this case, I pressed R. Also, if you want to access those tools, they're right here for the move, scale, and rotate and scale. So I'm going to use the green handle so that I can make this little, so that it matches more like one of these trash cans here. Okay. Let's move this up. Again, I'm just going to be following, just roughly. I'm not going to be exactly copying the images. Okay, so I'm going to leave it this way. Next, for the lid, I'm going to duplicate the object that I already have here. So what I'm going to do is press Ctrl D to duplicate. And as you can see, I can now move. Make sure you press W so you can move this up. Another way to duplicate is, of course, by going to menus, which is right here, duplicate, and just move this guy up. We press R, use the green one to make the lid. Okay, I'm going to leave that one as is for now. I just want to make sure I got this guy going. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down right click. So I didn't say anything about that. To select the object, drag over it. to select faces, edges, or a vertex. To select a vertex, just hold down right click and this menu is going to appear. And let's go to edges. Double click this guy. Oops, actually I want to have faces selected, not edges. So faces, and I like to use the drag selection just so that I can hold down the left mouse click and just drag to select my faces. This time I'm using the marquee select, which as you can see, if I drag, it's going to select that, but at the same time it's going to be selecting faces that I don't really want selected. So if you want to use the drag selection, like I'm going to hold down Q, and then your left mouse click. Make sure you hold down Q and left mouse click, and then drag right here on the select, and just deselect the marquee selection. And that's going to switch our selection to type to the drag selection. So now I can just drag. It's not going to select the faces that I don't want. Okay. Then I'm going to press R, scale this guy up just a little bit. As you can see, Trashcans kind of have like an angle, just a little bit, not too much. Okay. Get this a little here. Okay. Okay. And that looks fine for me. Again, I'm just making a generic looking trash can here. And I'm going to press R on my top mesh here, object. I'm going to scale that. Move this guy down. Okay. I'll probably select the top faces for this guy. And I'm going to scale this just a little bit, like that. And finally I'm going to, oops, why is this different? Okay, make sure this is polygons. I'm going to edit mesh and I'm going to extrude. And after doing that, you're going to see this manipulator here. But I'm just going to press R and scale this guy down just a bit. And that guy up. Select these edges. To select the whole edge loop, I just double click on one edge. Okay. Okay. There we have it. And if you see, as you can see here, you can kind of see the faces in this like a hard edge here. I don't really want that. To fix that, what you can do is if you go to the normal menu here and go to set normal angle and set it to something like 60. Apply, and now as you can see that that area is now smooth, and but we still keep the hard edges for the hard edges should be. Okay, so this is what would be our low poly model here. So basically this would be the version we will be using for like something like a game, first person type of game. But now we want to create a high poly that we are going to transfer the high details of that model to. So what I'll do is I'm going to select these two and I'm going to combine those two by going to mesh combine. That's going to make it into one object. As you can see, selected, I have one object. And something else that does is it freezes transformations for my object. I'm also going to modify center pivot so that my manipulator is in the center of the object. I'm also going to, it's a good practice to delete your history. So you can see my history is right here, but sometimes that piles up. So if you want to do that, you can go to Edit, and I like to delete all by type and history. As you can see, the history disappears. So if you see that my software is slow or something, you can delete the history. Okay, let's go ahead and make the high polygon model. So I want to keep this, I want to preserve my low polygon. So I'm going to just duplicate it, again Control D. I'm going to drag that to the side. And this one's going to be my low poly, and this is going to be my high poly. Okay. So what I'm going to do, let's use the, go to Edit Mesh and insert Edge Loop tool, so that we can insert an edge loop. So I'm going to put one, make sure you click on the edge, so that you can see it, and when you hold down left click, you can choose where you want the edge loop to be at. I want it right here, and click again, and one right here, just so I can get these guys here. Okay. Press Q to go back to move tool. Okay, now let's go to face mode and double click the body of the trash can here. Make sure all the faces are selected, just for the body of it, not the lid. Let's go to Edit Mesh, and I'm going to add divisions. Okay, and I just wanted to add more divisions so that I can extrude this indent looking thing there. So I'm going to select that face. I get to select more than one face, by the way. Click on one face and then hold down Shift, and then click another face. And if you keep it pressed, you can continue to select more faces. So I just want to select every other face. Okay. You can technically add more divisions if you want less spacing here. I'll just keep it this way for now. So just click every other face. And also this is why I kept it at the initial cylinder at 20, so that when I divided it, I will have 40 divisions here, which I could do this with. And I have this in the high poly one, not the low poly. Okay, so now now that I selected every other face, I'm going to extrude. Go to Edit Mesh and Extrude. Make sure that Keep Faces Together, that is enabled. Okay, just in case you disable that, just make sure that's selected. So let's go to Extrude. And this time I'm going to use the Extrude manipulator here, which in this case is the blue arrow. Okay, use the blue one, don't use the other ones. And I'm going to move that one in just a little bit. I think that should be enough. Maybe just a tiny bit more. I'll keep it like that. And I may want to scale this just a little bit. So if you click on one of the cubes here and then use the one in the middle, and scale that just slightly, not much. Now I'm actually going to press R this time. Use the green one just a little bit. Okay, that should be fine. So as you can see, we got that now. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to press 3, so I can go to my what's known as the subdivision approximation mode, and it does this, which kind of rounds up the object, but we wanted to go back to some of the hard edges that we had. which is why we're going to add some edge loops. We could also try to use the bevel tool, but in this case I'm just going to do it this way. So let's go to Edit Mesh and insert edge loop tool. As you can see, since we are in the subdivision mode, it shows the cage for the original mode, I guess. Then now we're going to drag an edge loop as close as possible to the bottom so that it can go back there. Okay. One in the bottom here as well, just so that we can get that kind of hard edge back. Let's do it for the top as well. Go to press G so I can use my edge loop tool again. Okay, let's put another one. Probably even here I'll put another one just in case. Okay. So this is what your model should look like right now. Okay. And I'm also going to press G again. Put one right here. Let's see what that looks like. Yep. And one at the bottom. And now we kind of have that indent type of thing here. Put an edge loop right here. And I'll put one right here as well. And one here. One right here. Okay. Let me try to get an edge loop in the middle here. See if that works. Oops. I don't think it's going to work that well. So you can try that as well. Put an edge loop that goes in between these guys. If you want a harder indent there. In this case, I'm just going to leave it the way it was. Now I'm going to use an extrusion here. I'm going to select these faces and double click here. Just make sure you have a loop here where you can select faces. Go to Edit Mesh and Extrude and use the blue handle to go in. Go back to 1 so I can see this better. Okay. Right there. Press R, scale it just a little bit. Okay. I'm going to press 3 to go back, see what it looks like. And I can add an edge loop here. If you putting edge loops close to another edge loop is going to make it a harder edge. As you can see here, I put two really close to each other. Made that kind of hard edge there. So you can experiment with that, adding a few of these. So let's put another one here somewhere. I'll add a few more edge loops. One right here and right here. Something I didn't mention is to select the whole face loop. Select the face and hold down Shift and then double click the face next to it. That selects the whole face loop. And you can do the same with this one. Let's go to Edit Mesh and Extrude. Use the blue handle again. Every time you extrude, use that blue handle here. Okay. Now I'm going to press 3. Go to Edit Mesh, edge loop again, and just add an edge loop close to the other one. Press Q to go back, and we have something like that. kind of want to get another one here to press 1 to go back. Insert edge loop 2. Select that face loop. Go to edit mesh and extrude. Use the blue handle. Press 3. And now go to edit mesh, insert edge loop. And put an edge loop close to the other edge. So you can get a hard edge. And there we go. Okay, so we have the body done here. And now we have to do almost the exact same thing with the lid. Make sure you add an edge loop close to the edge here. Okay, I'll add another one. One at the top. Okay. And we probably want to add something to the top of the lid as well. I'll press 1. I'll add an edge loop right here and one right here. Select that face loop. Go to edit mesh and extrude. Again, I'm going to use the blue arrow this time, and I'll bring this one out this time just a little bit. And I'm going to press R to scale that, and scale that just a bit like that. Press 3, and now I'm going to add those edge loops so that I can get a hard edge. See what that looks. Okay. I'll press 1 so I can go back to my first view here. I'm going to insert an edge loop again, and add it right here. And again, don't be too concerned that yours doesn't look exactly like mine. Remember, I'm basically not even following the reference that much, so don't be too concerned about yours not looking exactly like it. We just want to get a general type of look here. Okay, I'm going to select these faces here. Let me go to select, grow selection. I'm going to press G so I can grow that more. Now I'm going to go to edit mesh extrude, use the blue handle. I'm going to move that up just a bit, not much. Okay. Oops. And now I'm going to do the select, but this time I'm going to shrink the selection. And now I'm going to the edit mesh and extrude and move this one up just a bit. Finally, let's go back to the select and shrink selection and do the extrusion one more time, and just a little bit. Okay, I'm going to go to my edge mode, double click that one at the top, and let's see, scale that just slightly. Okay, do the same with this one. And the same with this one. And now I can just go to press 3, and again I can just add those edge loops. As you can see, we get that and do the same with the other ones. Again, we're just repeating, basically using the almost the exact same tools over and over. Okay, so now that is our high polygon model. The thing that you have to make sure is that as you make changes to the high poly, just make sure that overall stays, as far as the silhouette of the model, it stays relatively close to the original shape, which in this case was this one. So as you can see, they're relatively close. We didn't make huge changes as far as the silhouette. It's pretty much the same as the low poly one. So we're going to use the details of this model and transfer those to the low poly, which is this. So first we're going to go back to 1, so press 1, and this is what it looks in 1, but I want it to look like it does in 3. Okay, so to do that we have to smooth the model. So if you go to Mesh, Smooth, just make sure your options look exactly like mine do. Okay, so lift this up for a second here so you can double check. Okay, let's apply that. Close. And now our model looks like it did when we pressed 3, but this time it's in just 1, in mode number 1. So don't press 3, just look at it by pressing 1. Now we're going to create the UVs for the model so that we can properly bake the high poly to the low poly. First we'll have to make sure we're under the polygons tool set here, and go to edit UVs. Make sure you have the object selected. Go to edit UVs, UV texture editor, and this is what you're going to see here. I'm going to click right here so I can see it better, and click right there as well so that it stands out more. So now we have to create the UVs for this guy. An important thing when doing UVs is that you want to make sure there is no distortion with the texture on the model, and the easiest way to see that is if we apply a texture to the model here, a UV distortion grid. So let's go ahead and do that. Hold down, right click, go to assign new material. Lambert, it's fine. I'm going to name this UV material, and we're going to apply a texture to this. Under the color, click on the checker box and choose file, and now click on the folder, select the texture. You can download these textures. I'm going to have it available on my website so you can download that and use it, or just Google for one and use your own. So to see the texture on the model, I'm going to press 6, and this is what it looks like. And as you can see, our texture is based on it's just a texture with a bunch of squares. So we want to make sure that the squares look like squares on the model. In this case they look stretched, and up here they just look flat out pretty bad. So we have to fix that. So open the UV here, click on the model. Let's do the base first. So I'm going to double click that. So as you can see, when I double click, it selects the whole thing, and it also selects it in the UV editor. So we have the faces selected. I want to change that to UV. So hold down Control and right mouse click and choose where it says to UV, and now press W and you can move that to the side. And this is the lid. So in this case we really don't have to project UVs ourselves because Maya, we used a primitive in Maya, so it already comes with UVs, as you can see. all we have to do is fix the distortion. In this case here, where it looks squashed like that. So I'm going to hold down right click, go to UV, and select click on the UV for this thing. Hold down Control, right click, and now to shell. And once you have that selected, we're going to press R and scale that using the red handle here. So now we get we can fix the area right here and just make it so that they look as closely as possible, looking as squares. And I think that looks fine. So that's all we have to do there. Move this to the side. Those. Okay. So now let's work with the top here. We're going to do the same thing. Select UV here. Control, right mouse click to shell. Press R, scale that. In this case, I'm actually going to use the green arrow here. Use the middle one to scale this larger so I can see it better. And just make it look like squares. Okay, that looks relatively fine. The bottom should be fine, except for the top. The top we have to fix that because we did an extrusion, so that kind of messed up the UVs here. So I'm going to select the whole top. So select those faces, then go to the select menu and grow selection. And in this case, what I'm going to do is go to create UVs. So we have to manually create UVs for that part. And we're going to choose the planar mapping, but make sure you click on the options box first. So we want to make sure that, actually let me reset here. So fit projection should be set to best plane. And also make sure that the image width and ratio is selected. Okay, and projects, and we get this guy right here. As you can see now, it seems to be fairly fine. Everything looks like squares here. The texture looks fine on the model. Okay, so that's pretty much all we have to do for the UVs, for the exception of number one, we have to make sure that the sizing matches. Like right here, our squares are larger than here. We want to make sure they're close. Also, to bake our texture, we want to make sure that our UV pieces all fit within this quadrant right here. So they should fit there. Okay. So what I'm going to do is select all the objects. It's best if you manually scale pieces so that they fit, they have the same sizing here. But I'll try to use the layout option, which can sometimes help. So layout options box, I'm going to set it to wall. 256. Apply and close it. That kind of helped. Again, as I said before, it's better if you do it manually. Sometimes the layout option does not do a very good job. Which is why, but in this case I think it did a pretty good job at matching the sizing for the whole area here. And I think we also have enough spacing here. I actually want just a little more space, so I'm going to select everything. Okay, now this guy. To move this one up here. You're gonna have a little space between the pieces here. Okay, so this is what the UVs should look like. So everything looks fine. So we're set to go. So now we can make the details from the high poly to the low poly. I'm just gonna press 5 so I don't have to see texture anymore. Okay, so the first thing we have to do to transfer that, number one, I want to name my model. I don't want it to be named Poly Surface 2 here. So if I click here, I'll name it something static mesh, so a NES underscore prop Trashcan. I'm going to call it low for low poly, and I'm going just to copy this one and name this one now. Press V, Ctrl V to paste, and this one's high. That's my high poly. I'm also going to delete my history because, as you can see, I got a lot of stuff here. So I'm going to edit, delete all by type history. Okay. So to transfer the details from this model to this one, number one, we want to make sure that our models are at the origin of the grid. So I'm going to select this object, and to move stuff to the origin of the grid, make sure you can see this area right here. Okay, it's the absolute transform, and select the object and type 0, 0, 0 and press enter, and it's going down there. Okay, now I'm going to modify freeze transformations. So my transformations here is all 0, scales 1. Now I'm going to move this one. I'm going to do the same thing. Just enter and freeze transformations. Okay. So now the model is exactly on top. They're overlapping each other, which is what we want. When you're going to bake the details from the high to the low poly, they have to be on top of each other. And this is the case even if you're doing this with another software. Okay, so now we have to bake. That's what the process is called. We bake a normal map onto the low poly. So I'm going to we're going to switch from our polygons tool set to rendering, and we're going to lighting and shading menu, and go to transfer maps, and we're going to have this right here. I'm going to reset everything so yours should look exactly like this one. So first, what this menu allows is for us to bake different types, really, not just a normal map, but other types as well. And actually, since we're going to be using dedo to texture the model, I actually want to also bake a diffuse map, which is going to be the color map. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this model just for now, and to this one I'm going to apply a new material. So I'm going to hold down, right click, go down where it says assign new material. It doesn't really matter what it is. I'm just going to choose Lambert. It's going to open up this, click on that Lambert, and all I'm going to do is just click on color and just select some random color. I'll select like a yellow. Okay, and that's all we have to do. So now click that model, and to get it back to place, you can go ahead and do that again, or just use the channel box here, where you can say, as you can see, there's a transform here for translate. If you type 0 there, it should go back to place. Okay, so now we can go to the lighting shading menu and transfer maps. So the first thing we have to do is tell Maya what the target mesh is. In this case, target mesh meaning the low poly where all the detail is going to. So select the low poly. And how do we know we have the low poly selected? As you can see right here, I clicked on it and we can see that I got the low poly selected. sometimes it may be a bit difficult to select the one you want because you haven't overlapping. But if you name them, you know which one you're selecting. So add selected, and the low poly one is right here. So for the sources mesh, we want the high poly selected. So I have the high poly selected, as you can see here. So add that one. And now we get to choose what exactly we're going to transfer from the high poly to the low poly. So as I said before, I want to transfer a normal map, which means the detail of the high poly to the low poly. And I also want to transfer the color, which is the yellow, to the low poly. So I'm going to click normal. And you get a choice here where you want to save your map. I'm going to choose the desktop for now and choose the name. I'm just going to call it Trashcan normal. Okay. I also want to make sure my file type is a Targa file, and everything else should be fine. It's tangent space, yes. And I want to choose a color map, also known as diffuse. And again, you can choose by clicking on the folder where you want to save it. So this one's going to be Trashcan diffuse. Actually, I just want to make Trashcan color. Okay. Again, make sure it's a Targa file, and everything else should be fine. You can also choose for Maya to create a new material and assign everything to the low poly, which is what I want in this case. So that way you can see it working in Maya. So yes to this. The Maya common output. You can select the size of the map. In this case, I'm going to set it to a 512. I wouldn't go higher for this. It's just a trash can, so it wouldn't be too detailed. Even 512 may be a bit high. For the mental ray common output, same thing, 512. Oops. Okay, and finally go to the advanced options. And I'm going to click this closest to the envelope. I'm going to switch my match using from geometry normals to surface normals. I found that I got a better result for this. Sometimes you have to switch between those two depending on how the normal map looks. Also, we have to have an envelope for the that's going to tell Maya where to bake stuff or how to bake stuff. So to see the envelope, click here on the display envelope, and it displays as a red mesh on top of everything else. So what we want to make sure is that the envelope covers everything, that everything is inside it. So in this case, I think these pieces are outside the envelope. The top seems to be outside. So I want to change that by increasing the size, set it to 1. So as you can see, I just set it to 1 and it's already covering everything. So again, you can do that, but don't get it too big like this, because then the bake is not going to be very accurate. I'm gonna set it to 1.1, should be fine. I'll set it to 1.1, and if we have problems we can try something different. Okay, so that should be fine. Let me go back to the normal display so I don't have to see the envelope. Also make sure that this is not checked. I want to keep my envelope, I want it to be deleted. Before you do this, make sure you save your file, just in case, you never know. So everything seems to check, and if everything works fine, the normal map all should transfer and look perfectly fine. So hit bake, don't hit bake and close just in case you have to do something different. So just click where it says bake. Okay, so now that we baked it, I'm going to minimize that window And now we're going to move my low poly to the side so we can see what happened. So as you can see right away, there are no changes because we're not looking at it in the right mode here. So I'm going to press 6 so I can see the texture. As you can see, it did transfer the diffuse, so now this guy is yellow. It may not be exactly, I think it's the same yellow, but that doesn't really matter for now. So to see the details, we have to be working on the rendered, either the 2.0 or the high quality render. Let's choose high quality render so that we can see now how our details were transferred to the low poly. And as you can see, overall it kind of did. As you can see, we have the indent here from the high poly to the low poly. We have the top, which doesn't looks kind of jagged here, but again that sometimes has to do with the size of your map. I think a 512 was fine. I don't think, especially once you have a texture on it, it's not going to be that noticeable. We have this guy here. As you can see, we kind of have these guys here that kind of dark. Sometimes that has to do with the envelope. Sometimes it has to do with maybe the shape. Kind of it went slightly different than the low poly one. If it's slightly different, then you're gonna get something like that, which is why I said make sure a high poly stays pretty the same. Stays the same as far as the silhouette. I may have moved it a notch or so, maybe, which is why we can have that. Sometimes it also has to do with the UVs, but as you can see, overall it did transfer most of the detail that we actually wanted. So that's pretty much how you can transfer the high poly detail to the low poly. As you can see, our poly counts a lot lower than this, but for now, if all you wanted to learn was to model it and transfer the details to the low poly, and then you're pretty much set. For everyone else, stay tuned for the next part, where I'm going to show you how to texture the model using dedo within Photoshop. Okay, so now that we have a normal map for our model, we can go ahead and texture it. We're going to be using dedo for our texturing software. You can use Photoshop or ZBrush, but all that's going to be manually done. What dedo allows is for us to texture something like a prop, something pretty easy like this, and get it done really quickly and efficiently and looking decently without much work. So the requirements for this video are for you to have Photoshop and to download the free version of dedo at the Quixel website. The link is in the description, and just make sure to follow all the instructions on how to install it and get it ready to use with Photoshop. So the first requirement for dedo is for you to have a color map, which we did, which in this case was the yellow that we transferred from a high poly to the low poly. Again, make sure you saved these textures somewhere where you can find them. I saved mine on my desktop so that I can find them easily. Okay, let me go back to my default here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to export my model here, because dedo actually allows you to see the model as preview of the model with the texture. So we can go ahead and do that. I'm going to set this back to 0 and just export. Go to File, Export Selection. I'm going to save this in my desktop. I believe dedo can hold you can import using OBJ objects. So I'm going to set my file type to OBJ and set it to Trashcan and export. So that should be fine. I'm going to save my Maya file and open up Photoshop and Didu. Okay, so when you open up the software, this is what you're going to get. When you open up the software, you're going to get a window like this one, which is basically just a small window, says Didu. And again, this is the free version. So the first thing we have to do is one requirement is that we have a color map, a single flat color applied to, which is going to be applied to the object. So we're going to click where it says new texture. Okay, so the color that I was talking about is basically what they use as the material ID. So if you have different colors within the diffuse that you're going to be using here, every color is going to be a different material which you can apply in Didu. So you can do different changes separately and whatnot. But in our case, since the trash can is basically one material, so we only needed the whole thing to be one color, which I chose yellow. It didn't really matter. So we're going to open that up, and I save mine at the desktop. So we have that, and also, which is really important, is that we bring the normal map that we made. So on the tangent space. Other useful things that you can use are the ambient occlusion and other types of maps that you can bake, whether in Maya or another software. So now that we have everything, we can just hit bake. So once you load the textures, you're going to get this. You get the window for where you are going to be messing with the material. You get a preview window, which by default just comes with a cube and a texture applied to it. And as you can see in Photoshop, there's like many layers here that Didu has added. So the first thing that we want to do is we probably want to load our own mesh so that we can see it. So click where it says load mesh. So once you load the mesh, as you can see, we have the low poly, and it has the normal map applied to it, so that we can see the normal map on the model itself. Okay, so now let's get to actual texturing the model. So number one, as you can see right here, there's a material definition and global settings, global details. Under the global details, you can change the AO and cavity. We don't need to mess with that. So if we click here on the material, which is our yellow, so again, if we had different colors for our model, basically every different color would be a different material. But since we are only using one material, everything's just one. So under our material, we can select a preset, which can be a type of metal. So you can choose any type of metal here, or you can just leave it as default, which is it looks fine. Another thing you can do is you can change the color of the reflectivity. You can change the color of the diffuse in this case, but I'm going to leave it as it was. It was a gray, so I think that was a pretty good color. So one thing I wanted to do for our texturing here is use one of the presets within Dedo. You can do it by manually adding all those details, but at the same time they also have a few presets that you can use, and I'm going to try one of those. So without changing anything, if I go to modules and I go to presets, as you can see, I get a window here where we have a bunch of presets for Dedo, and it even shows a preview of what exactly it will look like if we add that, if we used one of these presets. So in our case, it's metal, so we could choose a one with scratches, a dusty, over the top wear, strong leaks, or the quick and dirty. So I'm actually going to try a few of these just to see what the best results are. So I'm going to choose the strong metal right now and see what that does. So you click on it and then you click on the D. That's going to apply it to our texture. So after going through some of the presets, I decided to choose the one with heavy scratches, and this is pretty much the result I got from that. Again, that's just a preset. What it does, it adds a bunch of details here that we could do manually as well, but it just does it by itself, which is as a preset, and applies it to your model. So as you can see, this is a really beat up preset. It added a lot of scratches and just really made it look really old and beat up. So that's in case you want to use one of the presets, you can just use one of the presets, or and again, even when you get the presets, you can still mess with the details, all the details here that Dedo added, and you can add your own details. So if you wanted to add your own details, you have clicked on the material and just add detail, and from here you're going to get a whole list of things that you can add. So in this case, I'm going to be adding type edge here. So I'm going to be adding some edge wear, and you can even preview it and change lots of the options here. I'm just going to leave it as default, and when you're done, just click on the D. It's going to apply it to the to your texture. And you can close that. As you can see, it added an extra layer of detail here, which in this case it's our edge wear here. And there's things that we can do. We can change the opacity of the edge wear. We can change the color of not only the diffuse but the gloss and the specular. If I'm going to change the okay, your model is going to update if you have the update here clicked, checked. If you don't, you can click on it and it's going to update the view on the viewport so that you can see the updated. Maybe I want the edge to be white instead of black. Okay, so that's pretty much how you do texturing using the Dedo software. Again, you can use one of the presets, or if you just want to do one from scratch by yourself, you can just do it by adding a bunch of different detail layers, and in the end you're going to get results. You can get these results but just doing it manually, or you can even get something better than this. I think it's maybe a little too beat up, So if you want to do something different, of course, just add more details, and as you can see it here in the viewport, see what it looks like, and do changes accordingly. And once you're done, the final step is to export your textures. So click here for export options, and pretty much you can just select an area where you're going to be saving this, and you can choose if you want to export just the diffuse or just the specular or everything. In this case, I'm going to export everything, and that should be it. You should be able to use all those textures in Maya or whatever rendering software you're going to use. Okay, so that's pretty much how you would go about doing textures with Dedo pretty quickly.